Dante's Boxing Nation, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Charlo versus Carlos Molina. I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen in this fight. That's why I'm doing a prediction. Let's start with Carlos Molina. Carlos Molina has made his reputation on losing all of his biggest fights in very close decisions. Many would argue that he should have got the decision, and that's why he is where he is today. Okay? But when you've lost so many decisions, and even though people say, "Oh, but he won," when you've lost so many decisions, eventually you have to ask yourself, how come he wasn't good enough to just go in there and decisively win, to where he couldn't have got robbed because he won the fight so easy? You see, the point I'm making is he allowed the fights to be extremely close. He allowed the fights to be close. All right? Not saying that he didn't get robbed in some of those fights, because in some of those fights, Carlos Molina, he did get robbed. But the point that I'm making is he allowed the fights to be very close. He allowed his opponent to win far more rounds than he was supposed to let them win. And because of that, that tells me that Carlos Molina is a good fighter, but he is a flawed fighter. See, what Carlos Molina likes to do, and I don't think I know any fighter that does it today, is he likes to incorporate his holding into the combination punches that he throws. Every single time, every single play, this is what Carlos Molina likes to do. Don't get me wrong, you have people that hold all throughout the sport. You know, we've seen everyone hold. Bernard Hopkins comes to mind when you think of a fighter that holds. But Bernard Hopkins does not do it the way that Carlos Molina does it. In fact, if you watch Bernard Hopkins' last couple of fights, Bernard hasn't really been holding that much at all. You know, he'll hold every now and then. But Carlos Molina, he has incorporated holding into his every exchange that he throws. You know what I mean? He'll go ahead, you know, he'll sometimes Carlos Molina won't even throw a punch and then grab. Sometimes he'll just walk right over to you and grab you. Right? And then when he sees you waiting for the referee to break it up, then he'll just start throwing punches, you know, because he sees you off guard or whatever, you know, which is slick. It's very slick. You got to give him points for that. You know, he'll do that. And then, of course, then he has the punch and grab. He has all different type of methods when it comes to punching and grabbing. So, you know, this is what makes Carlos Molina who he is. This is what makes him as dangerous as he is today. Strictly because he likes to hold. Okay? He's learned to incorporate holding into his style to where it has been very beneficial for his career so far. But I'm going to tell you right now, that punch and hold style, it only gets you so far. As competition gets better, that punch and hold strategy, it will become more and more ineffective, as I believe we're going to see in a Charlo fight. But before we even, you know, talk about Charlo, I want to talk about some of Carlos Molina's previous opponents. Now, when it comes to Corey Spinks, for example. Now, Corey Spinks, who, of course, was a little bit past his prime, he fought Carlos Molina on ESPN. And Corey Spinks, he came out in those first 3 rounds, and he was handling Carlos Molina pretty easy. He was outboxing him very easy. Carlos Molina didn't really know what to do. And then all of a sudden, I do give Carlos Molina credit because I think he got a little bit more aggressive. He jumped in, caught Spinks with 1 or 2 shots, and for whatever reason, Corey Spinks, he didn't know what else to do, and he froze up. And from that point on in the fight, Corey really did nothing for the remaining duration of the fight. And Carlos Molina he was able to take over. But the reason why I tell you this is because you don't always just look at the finish line. You have to look at the beginning, the middle, and the end as well to basically gauge a person's performance. And I think by looking at those first 3 rounds, it showed that Carlos Molina, he could be outboxed by an American-style boxer fairly easy. One that has confidence, one that believes in himself, and one that is fresher in his prime. There was another fight that I want to bring up between Carlos Molina and Ishe Smith. This was another fight that was a real toss-up. You know, Ishe Smith, his whole career, he's always been hot and cold, hot and cold. So you can never really try to, do a breakdown prediction, on an Ishe Smith fight unless he's fighting against some superior, lion or something like that. But anyway, when they were matched up, I thought that was a 50-50 fight that could have went either way. And once again, Ishe Smith, he showed little signs that if he had enough confidence, he could have just outboxed Carlos Molina. But he didn't have that type of confidence, right? And for the most part, neither one of them, Carlos Molina or Ishe Smith, really did anything. They just, stood in front of each other the whole night waiting for their opponent to do something. And the judges probably had to flip a coin just to figure out who won the rounds. That's how close the fight was. The fight was a dud. No one did anything. So that's just another, fight that Carlos Molina was involved in. All right? Let's go ahead and talk about Jermall Charlo. I think that Jermall Charlo is going to be the first fighter to beat Carlos Molina decisively. And I'll tell you why. For many reasons. Jermall Charlo has a tremendous, very impressive jab, I should say. He has this type of pump and jab that he uses with authority. And he's not moving away from you with his jab. He's pushing you back with his jab. All right? And then once he starts to land his jab, that's when he lets his right hand go, which is a very impressive punch as well. Jermall Charlo, to be kind of a tall, rangy, type fighter, he can fight on the inside and he can fight on the outside. I don't think Carlos Molina's grabbing and holding strategy is going to be that effective in this fight. I think that Jermall Charlo, he'll get off before Carlos Molina even has an opportunity to get close enough to grab him. There may be even times in this fight where Carlos Molina goes a long period of time without being able to tie up Charlo the way he would like to because of the reach, because of the jab. Carlo's going to have to get around that jab, and it won't be easy. We might see Carlos hitting the canvas in this fight with some of them long right hands and those jabs blinding him all night from Charlo. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a clear-cut, impressive victory for Jermall Charlo. And that makes Jermall Charlo and Jermell Charlo two of the most dominant fighters at 154 should Jermall get past this Carlos Molina stepping stone for an actual title. Then you'll have Edeslani Lara, Demetrius Andrade, and the Charlo twins all at the top of the division, which makes the junior middleweight division one of the deepest divisions in the world right now. That's all I got on this one, guys. I'm on to the next one.